Hello and welcome to the Crazy Sexy Food Podcast. I'm Hannah Harley-Young, a photographer by trade and a foodie at heart. Each week, I sit down and chat all things food with well-known foodies, industry insiders, chefs, critics, and people who just love their food. Today, I'm joined by the beautiful and inspiring Jada Sezer. Jada started her career in the modelling world and slowly made her name as a prominent face representing plus-size models. As her career started to soar, she studied at university and went on to get an MA in child psychology. She really isn't just a pretty face. In recent years, she has established herself as a spokeswoman for mental health, body positivity, and is now an ambassador for UN Women. Is there anything this lady can't do? It's a pleasure to have one of my closest friends and inspirations on today. Jada, thank you so much for joining me.
Woo, woo, hey. That was a really nice intro. Thanks, Han.
I was actually, I had a guest on the other day and they said that it's so lovely to have someone else write their bio for them. Because I think as creatives and as sort of someone owning your own business, it's very difficult to write something wonderful about yourself.
I mean, it's always hard to reflect on what you've done and then, sell yourself. I don't think it's something that we're conditioned to do much of.
Absolutely.
So thanks for bigging me up.
It's all right. Always rely on me. So I always ask my guests, what did you have we are recording in the afternoon. What did you have for your breakfast and lunch today?
Okay, well, you know exactly what I had because I cooked you some food. I skipped breakfast and had brunch. Brunch is my favorite day. God, the food hasn't digested into my brain yet. Brunch is my favorite meal of the day, and we had some smoked salmon, rye bread with smashed avo, and some scrambled eggs.
Basically the best meal in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I've mentioned some of your many talents. You sort of went from studying child psychology to modelling to mental health advocacy. How do you manage all of this day to day? Because what you're tackling, they're quite they're not surface level issues, so to speak.
Well, we're in my house currently, and in my bedroom is a massive whiteboard on the wall which has everything that goes on in my head that I literally have to splurge out onto something that I can see that's not stuck in my mind. To be honest, I don't manage it. I think a lot of my career has been built off, being in the moment. And my mental health advocacy, it just came about because I studied, like you said, a master's in child psychology, but then I went on to talk about self-development quite heavily. And at that point in my career, I was starting out as a plus-size model and spoke about confidence and self-esteem. And the tips I was sharing were things I was learning to practice myself. So when I kind of, built up 6-7 years of talking about owning your body and learning about how to take care of your mind and not having that comparison thing that we can all get into that could be really destructive. These were just things I was thinking.
But where did that confidence come from? So you and I are obviously of similar age, and when I was growing up as a curvy girl, what I lacked was confidence in myself. Like, I didn't own the way that I looked. And that was a huge struggle for me growing up and something that I've had to deal with even as an adult. But where was that coming from? Because I wish I had what you had.
I mean, I think first of all, just to say, people think of confidence as like this end goal that we're going to get to, this fixed position that when we get there, everything else is going to fade away and we're going to live in the land of bliss. But actually, I think confidence is completely like the peaks and troughs. Like some days I feel really confident, and other days I'm like, I'm having a crappy day. Yeah. And there's usually reason why. I've probably not slept, or I haven't eaten enough, or probably tired from all the heavy workload that I've had on that week. So there's always a reason, but we go to our default of whatever that thing in our head that niggles away at us, which is our biggest insecurity, which might be, I feel fat, I look disgusting. And inwardly attacking our appearance is easy if also we've bombarded with narratives that you should be skinny to be and thin to be happy and be beautiful and more successful and more popular, when that's just simply not true. And I grew up in a family that, I say this many, many times before, where we didn't have magazines. We didn't have any kind of pressure on being beautiful. It wasn't about that. My dad, I'd enrolled me to play the violin, and I like to paint. Like in my house right now, you can see there's like an easel and some paints, and there's another picture.
Just adding another string to her bow, which is her violin bow.
Oh, literally. But it's just that type of stuff is what gave me confidence, because it was about my skill set, and from that I gained even more confidence when I had the camaraderie of being a part of a team. And that kind of confidence isn't fickle, and it can't be replaced, because it's about you and who you are and your skill set, which is so unique, that is driven by your unique talent, that I kind of was always in competition with. Is that true, or is it, being beautiful and equals success? Because I'm seeing that happen time and time again. The pretty girl wins the prince. It's in our fairy tales. It's on our screens. Like the girl that, gets with a rich, successful man is the beautiful model. Those are so, for me, and now I think are quite outdated, because we're getting a bit more clued up. But back in the day, you might not even realize it, but those nuances have happened around you. You're looking at the pop stars. Who was the most current? They were blonde Britney Spears, or
so do you think the narrative of our childhood has kind of reached its sell-by date now? We don't, even not even on just a level with, the blonde princess finds her knight in shining armor, but now it's maybe the blonde princess meets her future wife. Maybe maybe the Prince Charming meets his husband.
Look, you watch. Yeah, we're seeing way more representation, but you'll watch shows like Girls, and actually the pretty one in the group isn't the smartest. She's actually a bit ditzy, and she has the worst relationships. And then you see Lena Dunham, who as the main character isn't, quintessentially what we would see as the main character.
Yeah.
But she's also the one that I'd probably want to be most like.
Absolutely.
And so I think if we don't see it, we don't know we can be it. And there's more of that's happened now, because we'll challenge it now. We'll get on Twitter and tell a production company this isn't right, or that brand, you're not representing us, and so we're not going to shop there. We have that ability to communicate directly to people and brands and people in power, whereas before it was them and us.
Absolutely.
And growing up, I didn't think about that at all. I just kind of you're a kid, you just figure it out and don't really acknowledge any of those nuances that happen.
Well, I guess also, we didn't really have those. And I thank God for this, but we didn't have those platforms as young kids and teenagers. Facebook for me, I don't know about you, but came about when I was about 16. Forget about Instagram. We're talking, provincial Facebook. But I want to come back to the social media conversation in a second, but you were talking about your background and your family. What was your background? Because your father was Turkish, right? So what was he was instilling, obviously, a very strong sort of ethic, confidence. Is that where you feel like you've really got your nature from?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes I say something and I'm like, God, I sound like my dad. He would be like, I will buy you golden bracelets of education. And when you're a kid, you're like, what? So does that mean I get the bracelet, or what does that mean?
I don't want the education.
I don't want. Yeah, but he would really. I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with being a somewhat of an immigrant coming to London, setting up a business and figuring it out. That he really valued education and learning and working your way up the ranks. He would say, and he had high standards, but not in a way that felt pressured. But he was like, be the best of whatever you want to be. And so when I said I wanted to be a child psychotherapist and go on and do my doctorate, he was like, okay, can you get this all done in a year? And I was like, wait, you understand a master's is 2 years, doctorate a million years.
Do you know what? That's because I'm half Iranian, as you know, and that's so typical of that part of the world. They're like, so how quickly can you do this? And what's gonna happen next?
Yeah. And when you become a doctor, he's like, okay, so we'll get you your own private practice, and you will have your you can bring in he didn't know about branding or anything, but that's what he was saying, is you be the CEO of your own company. That's the kind of girl he raised us to be.
And what if you sort of came back from days at school and maybe you hadn't had a good day at school? Maybe, I don't know, what girls are like. A girl could have been mean to you. what was his approach to you if some days weren't as happy as others?
It's funny because he was the kind of man that would say something without saying it. So it would just be the little things like, okay, let's go for a drive to, I don't know, the Tate Modern. And he knew he was into poetry. And so he would take me to just creative writing. That's how I figured out what that meant. And, you know, we'd just go for a long drive. And that would get me out of my head and take the pressure off of that little social group that I was in. Because actually the world is so much bigger and greater, and there's so much more to explore than this little moment, which is probably fueled with, you're not wearing the right trainers.
Yeah.
Or,
and actually so
you like my boyfriend. Like none of that matters when, you know, you'd have these conversations about incredible artists and poets and authors that, you know, my dad would book us tickets to go and see the spring proms in with the Philharmonic Orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall, and I would bunk it, and he'd be so upset because all he wanted to do was, you know, culturally make me more aware of these things, but I'd be like, lame, so boring, I don't want to watch a Philharmonic Orchestra.
Typical teenager,
right?
You know,
but it was the fact that that was there, and he was present, and he wanted it, and because he saw what I loved and wanted to share a little bit of that with me.
And he was opening a world to you that was beyond the confines of school and friendships. And...
Or like even just, you know, my secondary school was maybe a 7-8 minute walk from my house, a 1 minute drive. He would still drop me off in the car every morning and give me a kiss on my forehead. And to a point where I'd be like, oh, for God's sake, like I'm the worst grump in the morning. I'm like, don't talk to me. I can't even bear you right now. But he'd still grab my forehead and give it a kiss and be like, have a good day, and make me walk in. And it's just those little things that give you confidence because you're always accepted no matter what you're going through. And it's just feeling loved that gave me the baseline of what I wanted my other relationships to be. So when I wasn't appreciated like that in my romantic relationships growing up, which, you know, I'm now very happy in my relationship, but before, you know, there was a few frogs that I had to kiss, and not only kiss, but maybe get into serious relationships with and not be treated like that.
Yeah.
And so that's when you have to realize, how did I get there? What does this mean? Which boundaries did I let go of? And I think self-development is incredibly helpful and important to everyone because we're all on that journey. You're never going to be born with like the most conscious ability to know everything.
These are skills.
Yeah, these are skills
learn along the way. Absolutely.
Sure.
And sort of just to bring it back to the food, as much as I'm sort of like mesmerized by you talking. Your father was Turkish. Your mother is
Spanish, but born and raised in England. So very British, but heritage Spanish.
Okay. So what were you eating growing up? And, you know, who was cooking? What were the influences in the house?
So we ate a lot of Turkish food, as you can imagine. Yeah, my mum would make... It was really interesting because my mum could also make like traditional British dishes. Like we'd have a Sunday roast on a Sunday, or like a shepherd's pie and things like that. Very British, English, quintessentially English dishes. But then equally we could have maybe a spaghetti bolognese or some fish and some vegetables, or a paella.
Oh, I love paella.
But Turkish food would probably be incorporated
and
into
was
that.
Your dad making the Turkish food? So
it's interesting. My dad had a restaurant, so he would cook all day. And so my mum did most of the cooking at home. Okay. But my dad was the man that you'd rope in when you hadn't gone food shopping. So you have all these like random bits in your fridge, and he would whip it up into a really yummy dish. And his thing was, if you cook from the heart, it will taste good.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
You know when a meal has been made with love. And you equally know when a meal has not been made with love.
Yeah, it's that energy. You're like, this tastes bad.
And so growing up, do you feel like food played a big part of your life? You know, was it a sort of a family thing? Would you sit down for meals? Was it of importance?
Yes and no. There would be times where we would all have meals together. You know, like I said, with my dad whipping up a meal, that was a moment that I do remember. He loved his baklava, so we'd have that. Wow. I didn't really like it, and I'd say to him,
did he used to ever make that from scratch?
Or would he... I think my mum did. I'm one of 4, so my older sister's got all the luxury of all the yummy home cooked food that time allows you to make.
Yeah.
We didn't, me and my little brother. But I think my mum did. I mean, she probably could cook it now if I asked her to.
And nowadays, do you cook?
Yes. Again, I do enjoy cooking, not only for other people, but I really enjoy cooking for myself, which is something that I think we take for granted.
Completely.
Like, why not indulge in cooking a really nice meal for you? I will cook with Netflix on my laptop, and whilst I'm watching the documentary, I'm chopping away for just my little meal, and it makes me feel nice.
But I think, and I was actually saying to somebody the other day, it's actually the process of making a meal that I actually enjoy sometimes more than eating it. They always say whenever you've made the meal, you never really enjoy it as much as your guests do. But the actual process of starting from scratch and making something, I really, really enjoy. I find it quite therapeutic. It's like you're saying, you listen to Netflix. I also you watch Netflix. I listen to podcasts.
Yeah, me too.
And I just sort of go into my own world, and then by the end, you have this amazing dish.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
Agreed. I love, and again, I also love hosting, so I'm happy to cook when everyone comes around. But equally, when my life gets really busy, I don't mind not bothering with cooking. I don't have like a love-hate relationship with it where I'm attached to one thing, or it's like one relationship with food. It just is what it is, and I think that's always given me a healthy relationship with it, because it's just a part of life. Like, we all need it. Mm-hmm. Like, stating the obvious. So it shouldn't be deemed as like good or bad. It's, I always think about the language that I use around food, and one of my sisters has a junk cupboard for the kids, and I'm like, you shouldn't really call it that, because then that makes it sound naughty, and then you're being cheeky, and there's all these emotions attached to going in
and
there.
you're doing something wrong if you go in there.
Not that, there's so many great memories people have with food, but I don't know, I just try to avoid it because I don't like those attachments. And also, I don't feel like, we often see food as a vacuum. Like, it's one thing, but actually it's so many different things for different people in different cultures even. But you got to think, what do you want your relationship with food to be? And, at birthdays and occasions, it's definitely something that is enjoyed. And, food can set a tone. And I think as long as it's not harming you in any way, then go with that. So, I have a box of chocolates down there, and like, that's where all the, my boyfriend,
she has a box of chocolates, and this is the first time she's mentioned it, and I've been here for 2 hours.
Wait, and biscuits. Yeah, because Hannah's always like, no, I can't eat that.
I'm much more lenient these days.
Oh, good. Oh, well, in that case, don't. I'm gonna go and get the treat cupboard.
Oh god, she is legit going into a cupboard. We're not going to call it. Oh my god, what are those Galaxy? Oh my god, no, what are they? Okay, hold on. I've actually seen these Galaxy truffles I need to try.
Like, this is all, and I don't even bring this chocolate into my house. This
oh
is
my god. If you, I'm going to take a little photo of this. This is hilarious. She's even got a Willy Wonka white raspberry popping candy.
Yeah, I got given that at a film premiere.
Fabulous.
I was on the seat, and I've kept that. And we've got some Kind bars, and we've got some healthy snacks in there too.
Yeah, no, mix it up.
That's if you ever feel like you want something.
I might have
sweet.
a little something in a minute.
Yeah.
So when you got into modelling, was it something that you'd always wanted to do, or was it? How did you get to that point?
Definitely not anything I wanted to do. Definitely did not think I'd be doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It was a whole new world. Because, I told you that we didn't read magazines, and there was never public figures or models that I looked at and aspired to be like. So, yeah, didn't realise that was it. I just basically started, I was doing my master's, and there was a lot of young people that I was working with that had eating disorders and body dysmorphia. And again, coming from the family that I described to you earlier, I felt that it wasn't fair, the narrative that we had seen of what people should be like, and why these particular girls felt that pressure so hard. Obviously, there were so many other reasons, some came from really dysfunctional families and they didn't have other anchors in their life. But the kind of work and intervention that I was doing as a student, I was, doing my best whilst I'm on placement and whatnot. But then I'd go away and think, well, what else can I do? So then I just started creating images and putting them on Instagram of just, seeing people differently. And so by that, what I mean is I would style myself and get my friend who was a photographer to take pictures of me.
So this must have been right when Instagram was in its first sort of formative years.
This was when it just launched, and this was before bloggers. What I had known I was doing was I was almost a bit of a blogger.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take pictures of me, which is, everyone does it now, but it was such a new concept before. But I would do it with an editorial photographer, and I would rip out, this was the first time I bought Vogue magazines. I would rip it out and create mood boards, which I didn't realize I was doing. I was just putting pictures together that I liked. It's called mood boarding. Who knew? And
you were so ahead of your time.
God, I was doing a lot that, my boyfriend tells me now, you are a producer through and through.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I was producing my own shoots. By that, it sounds really glamorous. I mean, doing my own hair and makeup in Starbucks, bringing along a photographer that I'd convinced that these pictures were going to look good. And then I would post them up online, and a few of my images went viral and took off on Instagram. And then I was asked to be the face of the first ever plus size show during London Fashion Week.
But what I'm trying to get at is, so you have these photos taken, you put them on Instagram, social media, blog, whatever you want to call it. You must have had like an idea or like incredible confidence to do that, because that sort of stuff, as you said, we weren't doing that in those days. There was no word selfie. That term hadn't been coined by that point. So what was it that sort of really got you going by doing that? What did your friends think of what you were doing?
When you're going from doing one thing and people see you in one way as quite an academic in the psychology space, to then being like, I'm going to a shoot and I'm a model. I'm not actually a model, so I didn't even really believe it myself. But I was seeing the reaction this was having through the comments of people being like, whoa, I've never seen anyone that look like me, look like that, or wear that, or, love themselves the way that you love yourself. I would have captions, like I still do now, that are basically challenging the stories that we've been told about ourselves, that were appropriate for that time. And I guess it was just new. And to be honest, it wasn't just me doing it. There were a handful of other plus size models that were plus size models, really established girls like Ashley Graham and Candice Huffman, but they all lived in America.
Was that on your radar, plus size modelling? Did you understand it? Obviously you're mentioning these names who are all incredible women. I've actually worked with Ashley before. Was plus size modelling at that time, was that when it was really becoming a thing? Was it sort of reaching its biting point, so to speak?
No, not at all. It hadn't even been a thing. No one even knew what plus size models were, really. Like I said, there was a handful in New York, and I only came across them because of, I started to get more and more into that space. And maybe it was even like a year into my career, because I was creating images for a while before I got picked up. It would have been about two years that I was just doing my own thing and had built up a social media following. And then I got scouted 2 years into that. And then when I got signed with my first agent, they told me I was going to be a plus size model. But before that, I never knew that's what I was going to be or what I was doing or the category I was going to be pigeonholed in. And then I started to research, okay, well, what is a plus size model? In the fashion industry, it's any girl from a size 12 upwards.
Wow.
Which is ludicrous.
So I was just about to ask you, how do you feel about the term plus size modelling, plus size model?
It's changed, actually. In the beginning, I remember when I was told, I was like, huh? I'm doing the job like everybody else, so I don't really get this. But okay. And then I ran with it, and I created a Facebook page that said Jada Sezer plus size model. And I kind of owned it, because I thought, this is a label that a lot of girls are going to feel horrible being placed into, or horrible having to walk into the corner of a store in this tiny little horrible basic section with no variety of plus size clothes. So you almost feel like the second thought all the time, or the person that's less than everyone else. And I thought, well, let's reframe that. And so I claimed it and, you know, became a plus size model. And I think now it's changed. Plus size is a word that I think people are like, yeah, and what? So we see a lot of plus size girls all the time, whether you're a blogger, a vlogger, or a model. And so now I just say I'm a model because that's the job. I
think the walls have definitely broken down since then.
Yeah.
I think that the term is a little bit dated now.
Yeah. I think
in the world that we live in and what everyone, especially you, is trying to promote, I don't think it has as much of a place as it used to. As you said, it was put there to let people know that you were a model of a size 12, which I can't believe is considered plus size, upwards.
Yeah, and it's weird because you get a size 12 model in the fashion world, you think that's a plus size model, but actually the range starts at a size 18, which is drastically different. And then the average girl in the UK is a size 16. So really, you're actually going, a plus size model is actually smaller than the average size, which is really detrimental when you've got a plus size model, aka a size 12 girl, modeling fashion that starts from a size 18. You're not being representative of the client and the customer. So you're making them feel crap because they're seeing girls that don't look like them. So it's not representative, it's not reflective, and it's not even an ideal that anyone wants to try and be.
It's like something that really irritates me is being a slightly larger busted woman. I don't like looking at photos of women modeling what is meant to be a lingerie brand specifically for larger busts, but she is a B cup, because that's not representative of what, one, who you are as a lingerie brand, and two, what that bra is going to look like on me. You know, that really frustrates me.
You just can't see yourself wearing it.
No, of course not. When everything was going on, you started getting quite a lot of traction on social media. When did you realise you were kind of onto something, started running with it?
I guess when people started saying they'd pay me. And I'm like, huh? I just talk about what I like and you want to pay me to do it? And then that's when I started to think, okay, I need to... Well, I guess the modelling was... I mean, I would always have my social media content being produced consistently whilst I was building up my modelling career. And my followers grew, but I didn't focus on them growing. They just sort of came along for the ride. It was only when brands started to come on board and say, we'll pay you to advertise on your social media platforms, that I thought, oh, okay, I can make a business out of this that isn't reliant upon other people being the gatekeepers. For example, brands saying they want to work with me, or casting directors booking me, or my agent even letting me get in the room. And that's when I decided this is what I want to do more of, not just creating a platform so I can advertise on it for more money, but do more of my own thing and be a visionary in that space. Because people take so long to, not people, but brands take so long to catch up. So I'd walk in on set, and in the very beginning I had to get my head around this because I was once on a photo shoot and I was like, I'm a size 16. I wouldn't really wear this dress without maybe a belt to show my waist, or maybe I'd put on like a leather jacket rather than this like frumpy coat. And they were like, you're just the model. And
you have
like,
no voice.
Yeah. And then you're like, okay, and you have no vision. Like, you don't realise that actually plus size girls just want to wear what everyone else is wearing.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so that's when I realised, okay, do more of what I'm doing, because not only is it the general public love it and are following me and being a part of it, but also now brands want to pay for my vision, so I do have something special.
Do you think the idea of I say perfect in inverted commas, the idea of the perfect female body has changed?
I think our idea of what perfection looks like has changed, because I think people are questioning what perfection really means. With the massive conversation around mental health, I think, I hope maybe I'm just stuck in my little echo chamber, but I don't want to be the prettiest girl in the room, but I want to be mentally stable. And I put up this quote the other day. I was like, he might be hot, but is he good for your mental health? And that's kind of what I'm about. And I think a lot of people care about more is like what goes on in your head, because some of the prettiest people I've met are some of the saddest.
Absolutely.
And you know, that can lead
and
to
that
really
shines
destructive things.
out from someone. You know, if you're unhappy, you can see that on someone.
Yeah.
If you're sad, if you're depressed, for me as a photographer, I know it sounds cliche, but I see it in the eyes. I see it in my friends. I can tell most of my friends before they've even opened their mouths when I meet up with them if something's wrong or not.
Yeah.
Because the face tells 1,000 words. And if things aren't good on the inside, then they ain't going to be good on the out.
Yeah. It's true.
Do you feel like we are sort of, obviously we're not striving necessarily for perfection, but I think something you really stand for is that we really want to be in this very inclusive society. Do you think we're on our way to that? Do you think that there are a lot of hindrances going on at the moment?
We are moving in that direction. What was I watching just last night on Apple TV? It was all about how far we've come with having more homosexual and transgender people on screen. You know, back in the 60s, 70s, it was, demonizing them, actually. They were the people that, were often written to be the criminals or the offenders or bad people. And now it's, you watch Sex Education, and one of my favorite characters is Eric, who is
just the most
a gay,
amazing person.
incredible, colourful person. And
I
back
think he's one of the best characters written over the past couple of years in any TV show. I just think he's brilliant.
Yeah, and
do you know what? Actually, that show I think has really succeeded in identifying what has been missing in culture in terms of TV in particular, obviously, and has really shed light on the reality of what it's like growing up, whether you be a teenager, whether you be a young adult, whether you be middle-aged. Things are changing.
Yeah, it's very, very clever piece of work, and I've learned so much about sex from it.
So have I.
Yeah, they just break it down.
It really is sex education.
It is, but not in a way that is preachy or like your teacher telling you that and delivering it to you in a way that feels really clinical. It's funny, and it's what we go through.
Absolutely.
And those awkward moments when you lose your virginity, and seeing that on screen, the parts that you cringe at in your own life is actually really alleviates a lot of shame that can be attached.
Absolutely. So in the world of modelling, and obviously you've been doing it for a few years now, what has your relationship with exercise and nutrition been like?
I feel like I've always been consistent. I've never lost weight. I've never put on weight unless it's been, because, I don't know, trained for a marathon and then I put on weight because I got so muscly and heavy because I was eating a lot of food because I was training so much. But, I was told, maybe if you lost some weight, you might get more clients. And then maybe 3 months later told, maybe you should put on some weight because you could get more clients.
Well, this is what I don't understand. That if someone's saying to you, they've put you in the bracket of plus size modelling, and then they're saying to you, oh no, maybe you should lose some weight. Like, what do they want? Does anyone know what they want?
And I've always been a size 16 and I've never changed. And so having that kind of backbone of knowing that people will love you and hate you, and trends change, and what people want to book changes, but I'm just going to be me, was really hard, especially when I moved to New York and I was broke and I needed money. So I was contemplating considering maybe that is right. Maybe that's true. Maybe I should change. But when there were so many conflicting messages of maybe you should dye your hair like this, or maybe you should, paint your eyebrows like that, or, maybe you should, only walk in, not maybe, they said you should only come into this office if you've got heels on and you've got this kind of Celine handbag. And then this is when I thought, this whole industry is built on something that's extremely fickle and is constantly changing, and people's ideals of beauty is constantly changing. So all you can be is yourself, otherwise you'll become this diluted version and you won't even know who you are.
And you can't sustain this person you're creating.
No, and then somebody else's opinion is going to come along and say, actually, we want a blonde girl. And then you're like, shit, you can't be everything. You can't please everybody. And so health and nutrition kind of was reinforced then to just love my body, take care of my body, respect my body. Don't get me wrong, I'd go out and have a few drinks on a weekend and maybe order a pizza, and that's cool and fine too. But generally, it's always about like, what do I need? Because if I feed it right, then it will work better for me. So I've always had that in mind. And then I guess when I started to do these crazy fitness challenges.
Well, you did actually mention the marathon, which is something that I wanted to talk to you about, because I don't know if many people know this. I know she does, but Jada is one of, if not the main reason why I decided to run the marathon last year. So I want to thank you and also slap you as well at the same time. So you ran the marathon in 2018 and you ran it in your underwear. What was the message behind that?
Well, again, everything that I've done that's been really great and successful has always been accidental. So I met...
She lost her clothes.
Yeah, oops. Headlines. I met a woman called Bryony Gordon on a press trip, and her and I bonded over a table of sports bras because we're both two top-heavy women. And she had told me she ran a marathon the year before, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. You know, it's often on a lot of people's bucket lists. I have never run a marathon. I actually didn't even know how far a marathon was. I was not a runner either, bear in mind. I actually had never gone for a run. And then I basically was signed up to one the next week. And the week after that, she said, okay, we're training for this marathon. Come along and do a half marathon with me. And I was like, sure. How far can, 15 or 13.5 miles be? I had no concept of distance or how long you'd have to be on your feet for. But I knew your mind can take you anywhere. You can do it. And so I just thought, I'm going to put myself out there. And you know what will be exciting is if I hit a wall at some point, what will that bring up for me? I was interested in getting to those shadows in my brain. Yeah. Because I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I going to break down? I'm going to start crying? Or is that going to kick in some like turbocharged resilience that I don't even know I have, which, would be the ideal. And so, I just signed up and I did it. And I did one training run before that where I ran 6 miles with a group called Run Them Crew. Whoop, whoop. They were brilliant. And then that's when the journey started. And we decided to do our marathon on one of our training runs a few months after that, when we said, our bodies look quite great in leggings and sportswear, but it doesn't really show the reality of like what we look like. So why not have our rolls and lumps and bumps and cellulite on show for everyone to see, but also know that we're still running that marathon, even with that kind of body. And so that's when we decided to whip off our clothes.
I just think it's incredible. Honestly. I mean, you do these things and I'm just like, I just love her.
Oh, no, because you know what?
Ran it. But it takes a certain... No, but listen, there's one thing running a marathon. There's another thing running a marathon in your underwear. I mean, listen, Jada was there for me at mile 22 at the marathon last year. I don't even remember seeing her because I'd hit the wall, and all I have is photographic evidence of me sobbing into your shoulder. But it's, you undertake these challenges because obviously, primarily you're doing it for yourself, but you're also showing people that you don't need to be an athlete to run a marathon. Anyone can go and do these things. Yeah. Don't feel like you're marginalized because of your fitness levels, the way you look, the way you feel about yourself. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah. And fitness can look like one thing. Yesterday, this show that I was just talking about that I was watching, somebody said that the only way we could see ourselves is if we wrote our own stories. And so this was 2 sisters that are incredible producers that I can't remember the names of, but that really struck a chord with me because I thought that's what we have to just do. And we have all the tools and means to do it with YouTube and Instagram stories and Facebook Watch and all of that. We can just create our own narratives, and why not show us what fitness can look like, if it's not been seen before and it's making us feel bad about our bodies.
We touched on your sort of exercise and nutrition. Are you particularly strict on what you eat, or do you tend to keep a sort of healthy-ish diet.
Have you seen the box in front
Well,
of
I know,
us?
I'm trying to not look at the galaxy truffles, Jada.
I mean, I wouldn't say strict because I hate feeling restricted, but I would say I'm mindful. I try to have a nutritious diet so I'm not tired or feeling ill. Like right now, I think I've come down with a cold because I've just not had any time to cook and have been picking up things on the go. And yes, you can pick up healthy options, but essentially it's not going to be as good as what you can cook in your house. And so, yeah, I'm feeling a bit run down at the moment. That's why I'll go for a nutritious option over eating fast food. But then I also don't punish myself if I eat out and I get the burger. That's fine too. Like, and I love, my boyfriend loves it when I like bake a cake.
Yeah.
And I quite like it too on a Sunday. It's
Love
so cozy.
baking a cake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I love about baking? Aside from also we were talking about cooking meals, there's something quite sort of scientific about baking, because with baking, you obviously have to strictly follow a recipe. You've got to get your measurements right, otherwise your cake's not going to rise, or this is not going to happen, or whatever. Because when you're cooking a meal, you can kind of add your own touches. Oh, I want a bit more spice. I want a bit more salt. I want a bit more whatever. But with baking, you've really got to stick to it to create the finished product. And again, something quite cathartic about that process.
And that's what I hate, because my cakes often come out like bread. Because I'm like, no, that's way too much sugar. You don't need that. Or that's way too much flour.
You're just trying to do your creative flair.
I know. That's why I prefer cooking. So I'm like, a little bit of paprika and a little bit more thyme, whatever works.
When you do find yourself going out to eat, where are some of your favourite restaurants to eat at?
Ooh, favourite restaurants. I love Japanese food. And I mean, I'm somebody that often doesn't like to go... I don't like to go back on myself, and I don't like to do the same thing twice. Hence why when I was asked to do the marathon again, I was like, hell no. But
we share that in common.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah.
But I, one of my little locals is E&O's. That's a really great place in Portobello for some good sushi. I mean, I do love Sushi Samba as well for their Peruvian, Japanese, like Asian infusion. I'm into that.
Love that.
But I still feel like there's so many places that I want to explore.
Do you eat much Turkish food out?
It's Tyson's favourite cuisine.
Really?
Yeah.
So you know that there's a Turkish restaurant that was awarded the best Turkish place in London, and it's in Islington, and I'm desperate to go.
What's it called?
It's called Le Man.
That does sound so
It's
familiar.
behind Upper Street. I think we should go.
Should we go?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
because
deal.
I've been wanting to go, but I don't just want to go just like me and Leo. I want like to go as a group.
Yeah, I would totally be down. I love Turkish food, but
Same.
I'm like, okay, my two favorite cuisines are like Japanese, and then I love like Caribbean food. So they're my go-tos. But his is Turkish, so we have to go and check that out.
Cool, we'll do that. So I just wanted to go back to the subject of social media. What are your thoughts on social media playing a role in giving young girls an unrealistic vision of what it is to be beautiful? Because now we live in Instagram culture. We live in filtered realities. Are you concerned about the direction it's heading in?
I see most of these apps as tools. I don't see them as good or bad. I see them as like a hammer. You can build a house or you can destroy one. It's what we do with it. And unfortunately, they've been created and we haven't been given a guidebook or a manual on how to use them. So we're figuring it out as we go. And as long as things are inspirational to you, and inspirational doesn't have to be aspirational, it can be interesting or energizing in a way that just enlights something within yourself and ignites a passion that you've always had. As long as you get that feeling when you're consuming the content online, continue to do so. But whenever it starts to become destructive, stop and be mindful. Scroll mindfully. We scroll to, we get lost in the scroll, and we need to stop that, because that's when it becomes a problem. Because you don't realize what's going into your subconscious, and when those comparisons can just seep in. Yeah, so I just stop myself.
Obviously, with your modelling and, having a public profile, with this whole filtered reality we live in, whether we like it or not, how do you deal with yourself at times appearing filtered via other people, or, you know, retouching, photoshopping. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think as someone in the public eye, and this isn't for everyone because you look at Kim Kardashian with over 160 million followers, I have a sense of responsibility because I have a platform and I have people watching me and listening to me and influenced to some degree by what I have to say, which is why they tune back in day after day. And so there will be times where I will have a beautiful curated image in a beautiful location. And then there will also be times where I'm talking about policy and change and advocacy work and post up on my Insta stories pictures of me just like waking up and just talking to camera without having everything constructed around me to look like an Insta-worthy home. I think you have to show people all sides. And that doesn't mean overshare or not have any privacy. But seeing one version that is really always controlled isn't right. It isn't right. And that's where I think a disconnect comes, because people only think that, you know, you are, you know, you look on these Instagram pages and you've got women shooting outfit after outfit after outfit, and they look exactly the same in every single shot with airbrushed faces and face-tuned bodies. And it's not true. I always want somebody to be able to stop me in the street and go, you're the girl from, you're that person. Absolutely. Whereas a lot of the time the people in these Instagram, I've met them in real life and they don't look like that.
You can't even recognize them.
You can't even recognize, and that's where the difficulty comes, because we think that that is our reality, but it's not. And I spoke to psychiatrist Dr. Sarah Vora when I was creating my mini documentary series for YouTube called Instant Fame, and talking about the problems that occur from people that get thrown into the spotlight and don't know what to do with it, and also why we care to, you know, go on these reality TV shows. And she said, look up from your phone, and does your feed look like the people in your real world? They're not bikini clad models. So therefore just know that you're in a little echo chamber. That's what you're consuming, but that's not the real world. That's not what people look like. So what I do is I make sure the people that I follow, and also the content that comes up on my explore page that I double tap, is more of what I want to see. So if I can feel myself gravitating towards a really, like, you know, maybe a Victoria's Secret models behind the scenes, I stop myself from looking at it, because I'm like, that's creating engagement for that video.
And it's putting it in front of me on my plate.
And it's tempting, because I'm like, we all naturally are biologically built to be drawn to pretty things, whether it's a beautiful sunset or, you know, a beautiful bouquet of flowers or art. We're wired to appreciate that. But I think when it starts to become destructive because you're just seeing that, that's when I say no. And especially when it comes to our bodies and body types and objectifying women in those ways, I'm like, okay, actually the algorithm is going to give me more of what I watch. So what do I want to actually be seeing more of?
But does it kind of worry you that you mentioned, for example, Kim Kardashian has over 160 million people following her on Instagram, which is a figure that I can't even comprehend, that 160 million people are looking at her posts on a daily basis, more, because some people are looking at her and don't even follow her. You know, you've got the Kardashians that created Kardashian culture. You've got shows like Love Island. We're so inundated with this new concept of what people are trying to strive to, that is so, quite frankly, not only just unobtainable, but can't be continued. Does that worry you? I mean, it worries me so much. And also in the future, if I want to raise children in this world.
Yeah. I mean, I think as much as we've got that on the rise, we do also have people that are shouting about it and pulling it down and giving us real, honest profiles and relatable kind of commentary, like the Chessie Kings and the Megan Rose Lane, and, you know, these kind of women that just show us what their lives look like that aren't curated, and, you know, that show us the rolls on their bellies, and we'll just laugh and be silly, but then also show up and be a boss. It's showing that women can be both and all of the things in between. And so I think we've got the rise of that. But we've got to remember that Instagram is a platform that is built to promote more of aesthetically pleasing content. So if a picture of a Kardashian goes viral, it's because that's what people have double tapped more of, because that's what works there. It might not necessarily work on Twitter, right? Or that kind of thing might not work that much on YouTube when we want to hear more of someone's personality. And really, they are all about aesthetics. So we've got to understand that that's what it's used for. And like every app, it changes and evolves and is an ever growing ecosystem that isn't going to last forever. It's going to evolve into something else. And it's just interesting to see what will come off the back of it, really. And I'm just, hope that people that I see that are similar to myself and the people that I look up to just continue to give us that opposed opinion.
So last year you have spoken about being approached to go on Love Island, and you made the conscious decision not to do it. Was one of your reasons because you felt that therefore you wouldn't have the control of how you would have been perceived to the public? Because obviously that's an the machine of Love Island, of Towie, of all the things that have come from it, even X Factor in a way. If we want to talk, Big Brother, where did this all start? Big Brother was the first reality show pretty much that came onto the British screens, and that was 20 years ago now.
Whoa.
The Love Island machine, which has a lot of huge backlash due to its mental health connection. What was one of the main reasons that you wanted to turn it down?
I think you just said it. I think that definitely played into my decision making of not being able to have that control and maybe just becoming, a function for more clicks. And I didn't want to be that person. I've worked too hard over the last 10 years to pioneer a path, not for me, but for my nieces and for my younger self and for girls that will look up to me to see themselves differently, that I could just be teared down in maybe one decision that gets produced to look like something it isn't and goes out to millions of people on ITV. I was like, yes, high risk, there could be high reward. I could go in and get 1 million followers and do really good, and therefore I could be in the rooms that I really want to be in a lot quicker and have brands notice me a lot quicker. But that risk could also go horribly wrong, and everything I've worked for could be destroyed. And that credible fame is so different to the reality TV star fame that happens overnight and doesn't have any grounding to it. So that, it took me a while to get to that decision. I had to write some big, extensive pros and cons lists. But I was like, actually, you know what? I'm in it for the long game, and that's fine.
And I think that's it. I think that the issue with reality TV for me, as someone who has also been in the celebrity world but behind the camera, is that there is a very, very short shelf life for these people who are coming off these shows. Okay, you've got your followers, you've got your clothing deals, you've got this, you've done your endorsements, you've bought yourself a house, you've bought your mum a house. But longevity-wise, it's so short-spanned, because next year there's going to be another season. The year after that, where's your relevance? And that's what worries me for these people, is that, do people remember the contestants from 4 years ago, 3 years ago, last year, some of them?
No.
That it's a weird little rat race, microcosm that's been built into the greater rat race of life.
And then what do you do?
Well, quite. What do you do?
Not even literally to, as a work decision, but if you know that by becoming a more dramatic version of yourself, you can make more money, be more relevant, how far are you willing to go to be that person is the worrying thing.
Do you feel like with this filtered reality, Instagram, and also shows like Love Island or Towie or, or Kardashians even, have also given us a slightly unhealthy relationship towards food? Because the aesthetic that is in general displayed on these shows is not realistic. A lot of these bodies, the Kardashians, for example, those bodies, they were not born with those bodies. Those bodies have been surgically enhanced. Your waist to bum ratio it doesn't matter how many squats you do, is not going to look like that. Do you feel like that's now producing a whole other ball game with young girls starving themselves or keeping themselves on incredibly restricted diets, over exercising, putting loads of pressure on themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're not claiming it. They're not being honest. And they need to tell us. There needs to be a massive disclaimer that what you're watching now isn't true or has been manufactured. Because it's so hard where the lines are blurred to not put that pressure on yourself if it hasn't been overtly said. Because although we can say, guys, on Instagram it's not real, it's so easy to get like lured into the trap of thinking like, oh my God, why am I comparing myself to this person? Even though it's not real, they're still perpetuating this idea of this is what's beautiful. And the thing is, surgery is so available now that, young kids are getting lip jobs like they are blow dries.
I mean, it's just insane.
And when you haven't even developed into what your body can be like, that's when it becomes really sad, because you're already messing with that stuff and you haven't even grown into, things are in trends, right? This is a beauty trend right now to have big lips. I remember I've got quite full lips, and back in the day when I was maybe 10 or 11, it was something that people would comment on as a disgusting thing. And so everything has its waves. And if we are if we are changing for what's in trend to be beautiful, we're going to be chasing beauty forever. And I don't want to be on that rat race. I've got other things to worry about, and I don't think we should. And so I won't support and watch those shows. I just will, in fact, block that type of content because I don't want to see any of it.
And I think that's what's important, is taking charge of how you use your social media. If you need to block or mute things, block and mute them.
Yeah, yeah.
Create it for your own world and for your own vision.
We didn't realise, I don't think, it was going to get as destructive as it's becoming. And so something has to give right now, and it's us regaining control. We give so much of ourselves away, whether it's our data, our privacy, even like as a public figure, I give so much of my life away to my followers on Insta stories now, since that's become a feature. Before it was like a one grid post, maybe I'll post one every couple days. Insta stories now, I'm posting every single day, and I don't mind because I enjoy it, but there's a certain level that I'll be like, that isn't for online, that's for me. And I cherish it. And so it's understanding like where can we start mindfully consuming this stuff.
You recently joined the UN as one of their ambassadors, which is another incredible feat. Can you explain your involvement with them?
Yeah, this is really new actually, and really exciting, and kind of crazy because, I grew up thinking, whoa, that's a huge role. My dad really respected a lot of the UN's work, and so it was a very far-fetched dream. So when I was asked to come on board for the UK, I was like, wow, this is really, really honestly like a dream come true. They're my kind of goals, right? And I was recognised because of the work that I do on the ground, and as somebody that's pioneered somewhat of a space in the fashion industry and in the mental health world, they said, would you like to work with us? Because you've done it on a grassroots level. And the reason they wanted to do that is because before, you would have the celebrities that would work with them to bring awareness, and celebrities that maybe had been in like blockbuster award-winning films. Whereas now people can't relate to just that. You seem so far from the normal person when you're a Hollywood superstar. But if you're just like a normal person like I am, or I'm a part of the body with Gina Martin and Scarlett Curtis and Monroe Bergdorf, and we're all just normal women that have basically built a career because of something that we believed in, and we talk about it actively online, and we are activists in our own rights. So that's been a really great opportunity to be a part of. And I mean, it's all new and it's all starting. I just did something with their FGM campaign recently, and the campaign hashtag was Draw the Line, on women that have undergone FGM, which in some African countries is still extremely prevalent. And it is a form of it's recognised by the UN as a form of child abuse.
Wow.
So, I shine some of my light onto that campaign that they had, and we have a briefing coming up to talk about the others. But basically they said, you guys know more than anything in your little specialist bubbles what needs to happen. So how can we facilitate your activism in some way. So they're really incredibly supportive, and we're kind of figuring out what we want to do with that.
I'm so excited to see what happens with all of
Yeah.
that. So for someone that has achieved so much, what are the next goals for you? You obviously mentioned your YouTube channel, your
Yeah.
docuseries, Instant Fame.
Yeah.
What else is coming up in your life?
So we have on May 25th a 10K run, which will you do with me?
I actually have spoken about this. I might.
Yes, good. So sign up. I'm going to
Yeah.
send you the link. I expect you to sign up. We already have nearly 400 women signed up to do it
Amazing.
already.
Are we doing it in our underwear?
You can. You don't have to.
Okay.
You
No,
don't have
I'm
to.
not. Okay.
You can be clothed. Oh, you know
Listen,
me.
you're getting
stripping
me to do a run again. That's as much as you're going to get out.
Yeah.
Of me.
10K run coming up in May 25th. Me and Bryony created the Celebrate You campaign, which is a 10K run. And we did that last year after the marathon and got over 1,000 women to run it with us in their underwear, or some in sportswear with underwear on top. And we decided to bring it back. So May 25th, that's happening. And obviously all the UN work and campaigns that I'm going to be heading up this year. But also I'm just about producing more of my own stuff. Not just photo shoots like I was doing back in the day, or social media content, but moving into the film and TV world. So the documentary series came out, and that was on YouTube, and that was more like presenting and more informative documentary style. But me and my partner are currently producing our first feature film.
Exciting.
So he has just written up the script. We're about to get into pre-production and start the casting process. And again, it's just writing the kind of stories that we wish we had seen more of. So that is really exciting. I've ever since I got into modelling, I wanted to move into acting, but that wasn't for me at that point, because I was just so busy with the fashion world. So now that's where the transition's going.
I can't wait to see what happens. I always end my interviews with a few little quick fire questions. My favourite snack in the entire world is a packet of crisps. What is your favourite flavour of crisps?
Oh, okay. I could be basic and say cheese and onion, but I do love a Thai sweet chili.
Oh, so Walker's Sensations.
Yeah.
Okay, and cheese and onion Walkers or any other brand?
I mean, anything cheese and onion.
Interesting. I haven't had that answer.
Really? It's
From
so basic.
Anyone that I ask. Okay.
Really?
I mean, I love
Salt and vinegar.
Well, not just salt and vinegar. I love the dirtiest of them all, which is pickled onion Monster Munch.
Yeah. They get on your fingers.
I love it. They're on your fingers. They're stuck in your teeth. They're the best hangover snack.
Yeah.
Who are your 3 most desired dinner party guests and why?
3 most desired. Okay.
Dead or alive?
Okay. I would love to sit down with, obviously, Oprah. I'm sure everyone's probably said that, but just purely networking, because I want her to be my friend. And if a dinner date is what I have to do, I just want that energy to be around me. She is an anchor of my life without even realizing it. Like her podcast, her shows, anything she does, I'm like, she's on brand. Not even, it's in her essence. She is who she is, and she's always been consistent with that. And I just want her in my life. David Attenborough.
Oh, stop.
Probably.
I love him.
Yeah.
I apparently someone was trying to get him to record every single word in the dictionary so that when he does unfortunately pass, we can still have his voice for everything.
Oh my God, that's so creepy.
I just think he's the most incredible man.
Yeah, but the tones would be so weird. So it'd be like,
I know.
Once
there.
You went to the park. It'd be so weird. But
he is unreal.
Yeah, I just like to sit down and listen to his stories of the world and the adventures he's been on and what he's seen and how, which species are extinct and what is the rarest butterfly you've ever seen. Like,
he's such a rarity, David Attenborough.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last person, I need to find this guy's name. He's an incredible architect that I saw when I went to Japan. I went to a place called the Naoshima Art Island, and I went to the Chichu Museum, and the architect there, instantly became my favourite, because it was a concrete building that had glass and steel, and the whole place was just made out of these beautiful materials, and it looked really like brutalist, but also was so cleverly made, because it had the glass ceiling was positioned in a way that the light at 3 p.m. would reach it to project onto this piece of art in the middle of that specific space in the room. And it was just so clever. And it was a Japanese.
The whole thing
architect.
was a work of art.
Yeah, it wasn't just the art inside the room. The building was art. Yeah. His name is Tadao Ando, and he's a self-taught architect. And he just created some of the best work. And so I'd love to understand his mind and what goes on.
Fabulous. What a lovely little trio of people. What would be your last meal?
Ooh, it would definitely have a chocolate fondant in the mix.
We bond over that.
We do. I love them so much.
I'm obsessed with chocolate that's melted. Like, I put my chocolate bars in the microwave. Oh. Not to fully melt, but they need to be like molten. Oh, there's just because chocolate changes its flavor slightly when it's melted, and I just go into a whole different dimension.
And do you not have like warm milk and put chocolate bars in it?
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it's so yummy. And then you can make a hot chocolate from it.
Okay.
You definitely have that of some sort.
Absolutely.
And then something, I mean, I don't eat much meat anymore, but maybe some kind of really beautiful meat.
Like a nice steak?
But like something that was really soft that fell off the bone.
Oh, okay.
That
like
kind
a nice sort of lamb shank, or
maybe, yeah. But that sounds really bad because I really don't eat meat anymore that much. But if it was my last
this could be
meal,
like a little guilty pleasure, you're going to be gone. So
And this is the last meal, right?
Exactly.
So I don't have to
you don't need to worry about it.
Feeling like a not very sustainable person in the world. Yeah.
And finally, what is the one thing that you try and do every day to help with your mental health?
I mean, just something simple like make my bed. I know that sounds really like overlooked and a bit like basic because everyone makes their bed, or maybe not.
That was instilled in me as a child.
Yeah.
I had to make my bed every morning. And in adult life, if my bed is in disarray, life is in disarray.
Absolutely.
I think it is, I don't know what it is. You're absolutely right. It's so simple, but it carries so much. I think it's something possibly to do with the fact that you've ended your sleep, night is done, it's a new day, and you close that chapter, you're sort of closing the sheets, this is how I see it, and you start your day. And then you, at the end of the day, you get into bed, you open the sheets, and you go to sleep. Yeah. I think it's so important.
I call it the reset.
Yeah.
I just like to reset my bed. I like to reset, putting everything away, organising everything for the day, and then going. And like at night, I reset again. I take everything out of my handbag. I put it in its spots. And then, I go and take all my makeup off, cleanse my face, brush my teeth, get into bed. And I love those little reset moments because if I don't do it, if I sleep with my makeup on, and it sounds really silly, but like if I don't make my bed in the morning and I've not, unpacked my bag the night before, so I've shoved everything in one, I'm probably forgetting something, probably forgot to brush my teeth, haven't brushed my hair, I'm going through it.
Yeah. Yes. Jada, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been so great speaking with you and just hearing how your mind works. I think you're inspirational. I think you're aspirational. I think that you are just going to do such good for this world. So thank you so much. You can follow Jada on social media at Jada Sezer and subscribe to her YouTube channel, which is under the same name, Jada Sezer. Thank you for listening and joining us this week. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and tell a friend and another and maybe another. Don't forget, you can follow all the crazy sexy antics on our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook and YouTube at Crazy Sexy Food. Until next time, goodbye.